For the seventh day in a row, the Russian armed forces have been fighting hard against the units of the Ukrainian army that invaded the territory of Russia. The grouping of Russian troops under the designation SEVER and fresh reserves of the Russian army quite effectively cope with the task. As of August 12, 2024, Russian troops managed to stop the offensive of the Ukrainian army in the Kursk region, and also forced the units of the armed forces of Ukraine to begin retreating in several areas. According to Russian and Ukrainian war correspondents, Russian troops significantly advanced along the main highway, leading from the city of Kursk to Sudzha. In addition, war correspondents confirmed that the units of the armed forces of Ukraine were forced to retreat from the area near the settlement of Koronivo. Moreover, on August 10, the Chechen Spetsnaz Akhmat, together with the 810th Brigade of Marines of the Russian Armed Forces, managed to dislodge the Ukrainian army from the settlement of Martinovka. It is reported that with heavy losses in manpower and equipment, the units of the armed forces of Ukraine fled from Martinovka in a westerly direction. At the moment, Russian troops are preparing for the main battle in the Kursk region. We are talking about the area north of the ring on the bypass road around the city of Sudzha. This area is still under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine. And Russian troops urgently need to dislodge the Ukrainian army from this area. Only after the liberation of this area of the territory, the Russian troops will be able to breathe freely, since the threat of encirclement of the city of Sudzha will completely pass, and the enemy will be forced to retreat in a westerly direction, leaving behind a fairly large area of territory. According to war correspondents, fighting in this area should begin in the coming hours. At the same time, it is worth noting that many military experts and analysts cannot understand the logic of the actions of the Ukrainian High Military Command. For example, a few hours ago, footage appeared on the network of the destruction of a self-propelled artillery installation of the armed forces of Ukraine, in the village of Kazakylaknya, located 9 kilometers north of the city of Sudzha. After seeing these shots, all adequate military experts came to a state of shock. They still cannot understand why the Ukrainian High Military Command places artillery systems ahead of the advancing units of the armed forces of Ukraine. Against this backdrop, it seems that the Ukrainian General Staff receives inaccurate information about what is happening on the battlefield, and therefore gives such stupid orders that eventually result in huge losses in manpower and equipment for the Ukrainian army. In particular, due to these inadequate orders of the Ukrainian General Staff, the Ukrainian Army lost the deputy commander of the artillery division of the 80th Airborne Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Major Boris Stepanuk. Let me remind you that this high-ranking officer of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and several dozen Ukrainian soldiers were killed in the first days of the invasion of the Kursk region. All this indicates that the Ukrainian High Military Command does not have a clear plan of action in the Kursk region, and that the Ukrainian generals are counting solely on luck in this adventure. It seems that many officers of the armed forces of Ukraine also understand this perfectly well, and begin to express their dissatisfaction with the actions of the Ukrainian High Military Command and, in particular, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine General Sersky. So, the deputy editor-in-chief of the German newspaper Bild, Paul Ronsheimer, referring to his own sources in the Ukrainian army, said that many officers of the armed forces of Ukraine condemned the incursions into the Kursk region. According to them, the Ukrainian army is being defeated in the Donetsk region, losing several settlements every week. And against this backdrop, they do not understand why the Ukrainian High Military Command spends a huge amount of manpower and weapons advancing in the Kursk region, when all this force could be sent to Donbass, in order to liberate Ukrainian territories. At the same time, many Ukrainian officers expressed confidence that the armed forces of Ukraine would be physically unable to stay in the Kursk region for a long time, and that sooner or later they would be forced to flee.
German journalist Paul Ronsheimer fully agreed with the Ukrainian officers.
According to him, the Ukrainian High Military Command should have used the remaining resources in the Donbass, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, and not sent them to Kursk for the sake of a dubious adventure that could end badly for the entire Ukrainian army. Meanwhile, war correspondent Yuri Kotnak said that against the backdrop of the failures of the armed forces of Ukraine in the Kursk region, the Ukrainian army began to use forbidden weapons. In particular, the commander of one of the units of Spetsnaz Akhmat, with the call sign Hades, said that the Ukrainian army began using artillery shells with chemical warfare agents in the Kursk region. He noted that it was chlorine. According to him, his unit knocked out the Ukrainian armed forces from several heights, and immediately after that the Ukrainian army struck with the help of Western 155mm artillery ammunition filled with chlorine. It is reported that a gray cloud formed at the place where the shells hit, and Chechen and Russian soldiers immediately felt ill. The soldiers started vomiting and convulsing. Against this backdrop, war correspondent Yuri Kotnak called on the international community to launch an investigation into this war crime. If this fact is proven to be true, the Ukrainian army will be accused of using chemical weapons banned worldwide. However, one can be sure that Western countries will ignore this case and turn a blind eye to what is happening, even amid hard evidence. Moreover, seeing everything that is happening, it becomes clear that the armed forces of Ukraine may also begin to use depleted uranium shells against Russian troops. In any case, the Russian army must be prepared for any development of events, especially against the backdrop of numerous defeats of the armed forces of Ukraine. Russian troops must understand that the more the Ukrainian army loses on the battlefield, the more dangerous and unpredictable it becomes.